We're deep into the holiday season, and all those parties and events can lead to some unhealthy choices. We're going to explore ways to stay healthy this time of year. That's coming up next on WNIN Newsmakers. Welcome to WNIN Newsmakers. I'm April Nading. Ever since COVID hit almost 4 years ago, people have learned more about how to protect themselves from germs. Here to talk about some ways to keep themselves safe from illness this time of year is Dr. Kaylin Kari, EMS Medical Director at Ascension St. Vincent. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So tell me about what are the current recommendations for protecting yourself against COVID?
So protecting yourself against COVID and really any viruses out there, it really starts with just good hand hygiene, okay? Making sure you wash your hands after every time you use the bathroom. If you have to cough or sneeze, wash your hands. Also keeping any common surfaces that are commonly touched, door handles, workspace areas, clean those down frequently, okay? When I go into work, that's the first thing I do is I clean off my workspace area, as do several of my partners. So at least once a day, if not multiple times a day, and door handles to bathrooms, going in and out of the house, those kinds of things, wash them frequently.
And what about, are there any recommendations about masks, or do you see that coming back?
I've heard of one place in, I believe it's Tennessee, that has brought back masks in the hospital. We have not been talking about that at all yet. So hopefully we don't get there this season. We would love to not have to get there. So if you are sick, the best thing is really just stay home and try not to expose anybody else. Don't go out in public if you are sick, and that's how we're going to contain this the most. If you have symptoms, stay home.
It seems like, I remember when COVID occurred and that, they were telling people to stay at home, and I thought maybe that was going to stick with people, but it doesn't seem like it has.
No. Everybody tries to be like, oh, I can still go to work, I can still do my job, or, there's difficulties getting babysitters or something like that if your kid has the sniffles. Really, it's best to try to keep them home, keep your kids home, you stay home, work from home if you can, because that's how we're going to stop it from spreading to everybody else, is when we have symptoms, do your best and stay home.
Well, and it seems like, especially this time of year, there are going to be holiday parties, family get-togethers. What recommendation would you give how do you know when you should stay home?
So if you have any fevers, if you have any body aches or chills, if you start coughing and sneezing more than just your normal sniffles and changing of the season allergies. If you're really starting to have fevers, that's not your typical allergies. You should not have fevers with that, and you should stay home. Or if you're starting to cough up a lot of stuff that you don't normally cough up, stay home. That's not your normal allergies.
Yeah, do your family a favor, right?
Yeah.
So we've heard a lot about an increase in RSV.
Correct.
And how do you tell the difference between COVID, RSV, and the flu?
So you really can't. As far as your symptoms go, they all have the same symptoms. We do a test in the hospital, and when we test you, we're testing you for all of those viruses, because even us as clinicians can't tell just by listening to you and looking at your symptoms which virus you have. Different viruses occur more commonly in different age ranges, and so the younger babies, we tend to see more RSV in those children than in older adults. RSV doesn't tend to affect them as much, so they don't seek treatment from us as much, so we don't see it in them as much. But we really can't tell the difference. We have to run a test to be able to tell exactly which virus you have.
It seems like, though, this year we've heard about older adults who are getting RSV. And I remember years ago my twins had it a few times, and nobody around them got it. And that's why, is it a different RSV?
So that's the thing. So with COVID happened, everybody shut down. We all stayed home for a little while. And then the viruses that we used to see, and we used to say like they're very seasonality, we used to be able to predict them very well. The last couple of years, it's been kind of very different, and we've had to really kind of learn on the fly. Last year, we saw older kids, like the early preschool or early education, first, second grade, getting RSV really bad. Now we haven't seen that. Now we're seeing older population get RSV. So what we used to be able to predict really well of it's going to start in the fall and go through the winter, and these different populations are going to get it. Kind of all bets are off since everybody locked down with COVID. We're seeing the whole age range getting all the different viruses. It's hard to predict who's going to get what. So it's just
Is it
keeping us on our
because of the
toes.
lockdown? I mean, because people were not exposed to things the way they normally were?
That's what we're thinking, yes, is that we were locked down. We didn't go around people. Kids weren't in school with each other. They weren't exposed to the normal viruses and stuff that they used to be. So
to build up immunity.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you think about it, the kids who are in like first, second, third grade now, they were the kids who were in preschool and daycare when we locked down for COVID. So they didn't get exposed to those common viruses that they should have been, would have been. And now they are getting them, and sometimes they're getting pretty sick from them. So we're starting to kind of turn a corner with that a little bit, but we're still seeing it in those older children. So it's very unusual for us, but we take it in stride and deal with it.
How does someone know if they need to go to the emergency room for something like this?
So if you're having really a hard time breathing, you need to come see us, especially if you have underlying lung problems, if you have COPD, if you have asthma and you're really struggling to breathe, please come see us in the emergency room. Maybe even you need to call 911 and not drive yourself to the emergency room. If you're having symptoms that are lingering on and fevers for multiple days, really bad cough multiple days, coughing a bunch of junk up, then you need to come see us. If some of these viruses are having some nausea and vomiting still with them too, and you're not able to keep your normal medications down, you're not able to keep water down and stay hydrated, you need to come see us in the ER.
Okay. What about some of the vaccinations? Who should be getting those?
So everybody hopefully is getting their yearly flu vaccine. It's out now. It's in all the different CVS's, pharmacies, Walgreens, your doctor's offices. So please get your flu vaccine. You've probably heard a lot of buzz about the new RSV vaccine that's now approved for young children, pregnant women, and then also the older population. And so if you are pregnant, I definitely would consider getting that RSV vaccine because you're going to pass down antibodies to your baby, as well as the young children. And especially if you have a child who was born premature before their due date, or if they already have lung problems like asthma, then I would seriously consider getting my child vaccinated for RSV. And then the older population too. And again, if you have underlying lung problems, especially as our older population, or you are immunocompromised for some reason, like you're on chemotherapy drugs, you are on different medications to treat different autoimmune diseases, you're going to be immunocompromised, and you should have a conversation with your doctor about whether or not you should get the RSV vaccine as well. And then the COVID booster is still out there as well. I've heard that they're working on a combination flu COVID, which would be great. But the COVID vaccine is out there, the booster as well. And again, if you are an older adult, immunocompromised, underlying lung conditions, then I would strongly consider getting another COVID booster as well.
All right. And where could people find out more information if they just have questions about their health?
So always ask your personal physician, go to your family physician. They're the ones that are going to know you best and know your underlying medical problems best and what's going to be best for you. You can also go to the CDC website and learn all you want to know about all the different vaccines, the flu, the RSV, as well as the COVID as well.
Okay, so 2 takeaways here. Wash your hands.
Yes.
Stay home if you're sick.
Exactly.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Here to talk more about ways to eat more healthfully this season is Alyssa Schroeder, a clinical dietitian at Deaconess. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about what are some basic tips that people can follow as far as eating as they approach the holiday season?
Sure. So as far as eating, I would always suggest walk into it having some very clear goals for yourself. Because, what you eat can really depend, is very individualized. Some people might be focusing on weight management. Some people might be focusing on managing a chronic illness like diabetes or heart failure. So setting some goals for yourself as you come into the holiday season and writing them down can help make you stay focused and really know what you're getting into. So that would be my first tip. Now, my second tip would always to be if you're going to a potluck or you're going to a family dinner, a lot of times you will be expected to bring something. Always bring something that's going to fit those goals. So no matter what, you'll have something to go to with all of the options available.
So you'll know there'll be at least one dish that
Exactly.
you like and can eat. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And then my third tip, and this is a very easy one that anybody can follow, is be really mindful of the beverages that you're drinking. So try to opt for the non-calorie containing beverages. So avoiding the sweet tea or the regular sodas that are not going to give you a whole lot of nutrition, but can really add into the calories.
What about alcohol?
So alcohol in moderation, there are a lot of holiday fun drinks, but, men trying to limit it to one drink and women one drink usually is what you want to kind of aim for. But, then it goes back to your goals, if that's not going to be something that is for you, then no problem, just avoid the alcohol.
Well, and the other thing is alcohol can have a lot of calories in it.
Absolutely, yes. It does. You're never going to find any kind of alcoholic beverages that is completely calorie free.
Right. And then, depending on how much you want to be known from what you did at the party,
Yeah.
also depend on the alcohol.
Yeah, that's right.
So it seems like, a lot of times we're presented with food that we haven't prepared, when you go to one of these events. How do you assess what's being served?
Yeah, so at face value, anytime you see something that is really creamy or cheesy, those tend to have a lot of the salt and the fat, tend to be higher calories. So trying to choose anything that is a simple vegetable dish. You know that you can make half of your plate, that simple vegetable dish, and then that leaves room for the other half of your plate kind of being those more tasty treats that you might not get throughout the rest of the year. And I always encourage people to just ask questions. If, you can't look at a dish of mashed potatoes and know how much sour cream or cream cheese or butter someone put in. And if you're not really comfortable sharing your health journey, you can always say, oh man, how did you get those mashed potatoes so creamy? What recipe did you use for these mashed potatoes? And that can be a way that somebody can share with you what calories and maybe what ingredients are in that dish without having to share what your health goals are if it's something personal.
Right, yeah, and I suppose you could even say something like, I have some food allergies, I just need to know what's in that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
But what do you think about, I think a lot of times people think they're supposed to deprive themselves, or they look at it as, oh, this is the time I can just woohoo, do whatever I want. And what are your suggestions on maybe finding moderation?
Yeah, so I think that setting half of your plate up for success, so choosing those like vegetable dishes or like a fruit dish for your dessert, making half of your plate full of those really nutrient-dense food that's full of fiber and gonna help you feel full longer, gonna give you all the vitamins and minerals that can help keep your immune system up during this time of year, and then choosing the other half of your plate maybe for the more indulgent foods that you've been looking forward to all year.
So it's okay. That's where I think sometimes people beat themselves up, or like I said, it's just no holds barred and they just go crazy and then they're regretting it afterwards. And
that kind of comes back to setting realistic expectations and goals for each individual. So like my expectation, my grandma makes these amazing homemade chocolate turtles and she only makes them for Christmas. She sends them out to all the kids, grandkids. And my expectation for myself is I'm gonna have some turtles.
Sure.
So knowing that I'm going to do that coming into the season, knowing I'm gonna have certain foods that I look forward to and I'm gonna indulge on, then I can also know, well, I'm also gonna have to make sure that I'm eating a lot of nutrient-dense food in addition to those things that I'm looking forward to.
Oh, that's a good suggestion. What are some things you can do for yourself in between events?
So I think it's important to remember that, the one holiday dinner or the one potluck that you're having, each day on various days throughout the season, that's just a drop in the bucket for the whole month of November, December. So in between those events, if you're really focusing on making sure you're getting those nutrient dense, making sure you're getting your vegetables and fruits in, trying to keep that immune system up and focus on those goals that you set at the beginning in between those holiday events, that's going to set yourself up for overall success.
So in other words, it's like, okay, I'm going to go there and I'm going to eat this, this, and this, and then, but when well, it's like we were talking a while ago. I think sometimes people feel like they fall off the wagon and and then they just keep eating whatever, and they don't have to do that.
Exactly.
And having that plan would be probably
helpful. that one meal, if you had too many slices of pumpkin pie at your family Christmas, that doesn't mean the next day it ruins your overall health goals for the next several weeks and months.
Right, just go back to
That's right,
were.
exactly.
Well, what kind of expectations should you set for yourself? I mean, like, is it realistic to think that you might lose weight during the holidays? Or
for some people, I think so. This time of year might make you feel really motivated. I think that it goes back to setting those goals and making them really individualized. And you can always, if you're having a hard time setting those goals, ask your primary care doctor or registered dietitian what would be the best goal for you. But weight loss isn't really going to be at the forefront of everyone's mind. So I think that if maintaining weight is going to be more of a realistic expectation, then that's totally fine. If minimizing any kind of weight gain that you might experience during the holidays is going to be your goal, I think that's fine too. It's just really sitting down and asking yourself, what can I do for myself this year? That's going to be what sets you up for success.
So again, it's a little bit of a plan.
Yes.
Or actually more than a little bit. It's a plan and thinking about,
Absolutely.
here's what I'm going to do when I go to a party, and and it's the food, the alcohol, everything, here's what I'm going to do, and
Yes.
not just what you wear, but what you're going to eat.
That's right. And I always say, writing it down can really help to be able to reference back and be able to focus on, refocus whenever you need to.
There's something about writing it down that it's like I've put it out there, and
Absolutely.
it's in stone, but even though it's not really. But,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. These are some great tips, and hopefully everybody will be a little bit healthier when they're eating.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Now we're joined by Wyeth Hatfield of Southwestern Healthcare to talk about how to maintain mental health this time of year. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. So there are a lot of statistics that show that depression is increased around this time of year, around the holidays. Why do you think that is?
Well, it could be any number of things. Definitely the darker days. So our body doesn't realize that it's time to wake up. Also, there can be grief issues around this time because the holidays, that is a sixth of the year, so you're going to have deaths that happened around certain dates, so that could bring that up if there's grief and loss issues. Also being overwhelmed, overcommitting to schedules, eating processed sugar and carbs, alcohol, all those kinds of things. There's just more of that.
Well, what would you suggest to someone, like, let's say if they lost someone and this is going to be the first Christmas without them? I know from experience that is hard. What would you suggest that they do to help, try and get through that?
Well, of course, grief can be a very individual journey.
Sure.
So it depends on where you're at in your grieving process. But one thing that can help is to create a new ritual. So if there's a family gathering and you're really missing the person, it doesn't have to be huge. Maybe burn a candle or make maybe the person's favorite food, and everybody focus on remembering funny, positive stories, because the negative can carry a lot more weight and drag you down a dark hole. But really trying to focus on remembering the positives during that time.
Sure. And it's actually almost like taking it on, of acknowledging it rather than trying to not talk about it is actually more beneficial.
Exactly.
So what are some things that people can do if they do start feeling depressed around the holidays?
Well, creating a plan ahead of time. So whether it's depression or being overwhelmed with stress, so since our mind is a part of our body, we're really focusing on personal health. So sleep hygiene, eating food that you can get nutrition from, the sleep hygiene, trying to get to bed every night at the same time, that sort of thing. And exercise, yeah, it's going to be the hardest time to exercise because there's so many other fun things to do.
Right.
But just fighting yourself into it as much as you can, or at least trying to moderate. Just do what you can.
When you're talking about how people feel overwhelmed, I mean, what can you suggest to people to try and avoid that in the first place? I mean, maybe they're setting limitations, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, being able to learn to be okay saying no is a big one. If you currently have, if you can think about your schedule and you currently have 12 or 14 things to do between now and the end of the year, get rid of 2 of them. And if that causes you a lot of anxiety, you better get rid of 4.
So you're saying you could get rid of 2, and that it makes you feel worse, then that's not enough.
Time to cut down on, cut down on things, moderate on some things. And also another strategy would be to make your expectations realistic. So there are a lot of really heart-touching holiday movies where the miracle of Christmas happens, at the family gathering. But so lowering your expectations to be realistic and saying, hey, there's family tensions or could be some disappointments, and approaching things that way. So when something positive, and positives will happen, then it's a more satisfying event.
Well, and that's a good point, though, lowering your expectations instead of thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be like this Hallmark movie. And then if things really do go great, then it's going to be better if you're not expecting that.
That's right, yeah.
Also, would you suggest maybe that people delegate a little bit more?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Yeah, let go of control. Let it go. Yeah, delegate. Ask for help. So asking for help is a coping skill. It's not a weakness, it is a coping skill.
That's a good point. I think a lot of people look at it as being weak and I should be able to do everything, but ask for help from family for the family get-together.
Definitely.
I know I even assign people.
Oh, do you? Okay.
You're going to bring green bean casserole, and you're going to bring this, rather than even leaving it up in the air. And that goes, it's just fine. They don't get mad, or if they do, they don't tell me.
Yeah, and it relieves them from having to decide.
Exactly. So that's actually helping them as well.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So what about if you're close to someone and you realize that they are suffering from depression, how can you support them this time of year? Or that this time of year is always hard for them?
Well, making a balance again, but making regular contact without being a pest. So find out and ask them what would help you, and find out from their perspective rather than just trying to think things up that would help you. Think in terms of them and really ask them, what things could I do to support you right now?
So maybe rather than asking them, how are you feeling? Asking them, what can I do?
Yeah, exactly. And trying to help them to connect with community. And so they would have the opposite problem of the person who has 14 things to do between now and the end of the year, but finding something that in the community that they might be interested in, offer to pick them up and take them with you.
What about, volunteering? I mean, I've heard before that that's a really good thing that can help someone with their own depression is to help someone else.
Yeah.
And maybe even help find them a volunteer opportunity. Do it with them.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's and there's a lot of those going on right now.
Right. So what about, there's a lot of pressure to mingle with family and friends, and what are some strategies if you're going to have to be around people that you really don't want to mingle with, but you're forced into it?
It's coming. So create an exit plan, create an exit strategy, and if it's a gathering you really don't want to go to, make a back-end appointment. So you show up and let everybody know, hey, I apologize ahead of time, but I do have to leave in 1 hour because I have to meet so-and-so, and this is super important. It's a personal thing. And set something up that's genuine.
Sure. But so you set your own time limit. There's nothing that says you have to stay for the whole event.
Nope, you do not have to stay for the whole event. And when having conversation, you can keep it very surface level, so focus on weather, local events, not necessarily politic things, but very, very surface level stuff, and keep conversations short and move around to other people.
And there's nothing wrong with just going in and being polite.
That's right.
So what kind of resources are there for people if they do have some depression issues? Where would you suggest they call, or what would you suggest they do?
Well, of course, we have a crisis line, and if things get really bad, but connecting yourself with, if you're in a workplace, it'd be a good idea to see if you have an employee assistance program, an EAP. So a lot of places have an EAP program, so you could get free visits to see a therapist. You can Google and find support lines, groups. There are all kinds of different mental health places around town. There are support groups in churches, all sorts of resources.
Okay. Well, you've given us some good tips. Hopefully everyone will have a better holiday. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks to all of our guests for joining us to talk about how to stay healthy this holiday season. We're off for a few weeks. We'll return in January. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.